Have you ever heard a story so incredible, so powerful, it feels like it must be a legend? A story about a baby in a basket, a princess, and a destiny that would change the world forever. This is one of those stories, and it all begins on the sun-scorched banks of the river Nile in ancient Egypt. Imagine the scene, the mighty Nile, a ribbon of life flowing through a vast desert. But for the Hebrew people living there, life was anything but a gift. Enslaved by the powerful Pharaoh, their days were filled with back-breaking labor under a relentless sun. Their cries and prayers seemed to fade into the hot, dry air. A new decree from the palace had turned their fear into pure terror. Pharaoh, fearing the growing numbers of the Hebrews, had ordered a monstrous act. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile. It was a sentence of death, a brutal attempt to crush their spirit and their future. In the midst of this despair, a mother's love became an act of rebellion. Her name was Jochebed. She had just given birth to a beautiful baby boy, and the thought of surrendering him to the river was unbearable. For 3 months, she hid him, her heart pounding with every soldier's footstep, every distant shout. The baby's cries, which should have been a sound of joy, were a constant source of terror. She knew she couldn't hide him forever. Time was running out, so Jochebed hatched a desperate, brilliant plan. She took bulrushes from the river bank and wove them into a small basket, a tiny ark. She carefully sealed it with tar and pitch, making it waterproof, a miniature vessel of hope. With tears streaming down her face, she gently placed her baby inside, wrapped him snugly, and whispered a final prayer. This basket wasn't a surrender to the river. It was a prayer scent floating on its currents. She carried the precious cargo to the edge of the Nile, to a place among the tall reeds where the current was gentle. It was a spot where the royal women often came to bathe. With one last look at her son, she pushed the basket into the water. As it drifted away, a piece of her heart went with it. But she didn't leave him completely alone. Hiding nearby, concealed by the same reeds that sheltered her brother, was his older sister, Miriam. Her mission was simple but terrifying. Watch and see what would become of their little brother. Miriam's heart must have been racing. Every ripple in the water, every bird that flew overhead, could have spelled disaster. She watched as the little basket bobbed gently, a fragile speck in the vastness of the river. Then, she saw them. A procession of women, adorned in fine linens and gold, was making its way to the riverbank. Leading them was the Pharaoh's own daughter. As the princess approached the water, her eyes caught sight of the strange little basket lodged in the reeds. Curiosity piqued. She sent one of her maids to fetch it. When the maid brought it back and opened the lid, the princess gasped. Inside, nestled among the blankets, was a baby, and he was crying. The sound of his cries touched her heart. She looked at the infant, so small and helpless, and she knew immediately. This is one of the Hebrew children, she said. She understood the terrible decree her father had made. She could have followed the law, turned a blind eye, and let fate run its course. But in that moment, compassion won over cruelty. She looked at the baby, and instead of seeing an enemy, she saw a life worth saving. She decided to defy her own father. She would raise this child as her own. Miriam, who had been watching everything unfold, saw her chance. With a courage far beyond her years, she stepped out from her hiding place and approached the princess. "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked, her voice trembling but steady. The princess, now needing a way to care for the infant, thought it was a wonderful idea. "Yes, go," she said. Miriam ran. She ran as fast as her legs could carry her, her heart soaring with a wild, unbelievable hope. And who did she bring back? Her own mother, Jochebed. Imagine that reunion. The princess, unaware of the connection, handed the baby to Jochebed. "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you," she commanded. Jochebed took her son back into her arms, her tears of sorrow now tears of overwhelming joy. She was being paid to care for her own child, his life now protected by the very palace that had condemned him. She could hold him, sing to him, and whisper stories of his heritage into his ear, all under the protection of the Pharaoh's daughter. It was a miracle woven from a mother's love, a sister's bravery, and a princess's compassion. The princess gave the boy a name, Moses. It means to draw out, because, as she said, I drew him out of the water. And so, Moses grew up in a world of unimaginable contrast. He was raised in the opulent splendor of the Egyptian palace, a prince of Egypt. He learned to read and write. He was trained in military strategy, and he wore the finest clothes. He had every privilege a person could dream of. But he was living a lie. As he walked through the grand halls of the palace, he saw the suffering of his people through the windows. He saw the Hebrew slaves toiling in the mud pits, building the grand monuments of the empire. Though he was raised as an Egyptian, he felt a deep, undeniable pull towards the slaves. He knew, deep in his soul, that he was one of them. The whispers of his true mother, the stories she told him in his infancy, must have echoed in his heart. This conflict raged within him. Who was he, an Egyptian prince or a Hebrew slave? He was a man caught between two worlds, belonging to neither completely. He saw the injustice, the cruelty his people faced every day, and it stirred a fire within him. He was a prince in a palace, but his heart was with the people in the dirt. This was just the beginning of his journey. The baby in the basket was now a young man, standing at a crossroads. He was about to discover that being drawn from the water was not the end of his story, but the start of a destiny far greater than he could ever imagine, a destiny that would lead him to challenge a Pharaoh and lead his people to freedom. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story unfold with us. If you were moved by the journey of Moses, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more tales of history and faith that continue to inspire us today. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. We'll see you in the next video.